Hi, this is Justin. I want to give you an overview of Nsyteful, and I want to do that by showing you how to set up a common instance of Nsyteful. And we're going to have Nsyteful displaying two screens, one for a customer service team and another for a sales team. In case you don't know, Nsyteful is a status board, so it's designed to display charts and other types of reports up on a board on a monitor, I should say, in a room, so that team members get feedback, hopefully positive feedback, while they're working. So let's get started. I'm going to navigate to Nsyteful. And this is what it looks like. It's designed to be a status board. It scales automatically on both the X and the Y axis. So there's no scrolling at all. You can size the window to basically whatever size you want. You can even view it quite comfortably on a mobile device. If you're viewing it on a mobile device, just go on the device and request desktop mode. It works best with Chrome. It should work okay with Firefox, but Microsoft is often late to release some of the web standards, so it's really going to work best on Chrome. Before I log in, I'll show you a couple of features up here on the toolbar. One is that you can hide the toolbar. Another, and this is much more useful, is this maximize button here, or full screen button here. If you click that, not only does it maximize the window, but it hides the toolbar for you. If you want the toolbar back, you can get it back here, and if you want to minimize it again, there you go. And the other feature that I can show you without logging in is the ability to toggle between two themes. There's a dark theme here and a light theme. The light theme tends to work best if you're projecting say you're projecting using a data projector on a wall, and the dark theme looks good on a monitor, especially when you send it to full screen view, because that way you've got a nice looking screen there. If you're using this on a TV, you may want to Google how, and the TV is cropping the edges of it, you may want to Google how to resolve that for your particular TV. I think if you Google overscanning is probably the term that you want to Google. So let me log in now and show you how to set it up. Actually, one more thing before we log in. The page contains these movable widgets. You can only move them if you have more than one widget. So you can't, until once you populate these containers, as we call them, with widgets, then you can drag and drop them and swap them around. The design that we're looking at here is a page, but we'll see more of that in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. I'm using RoboForm to log in, so it's obviously smart to use a password manager if you're not already. If you forget your password for some reason, you can reset it here. If your organization uses Nsyteful and you do go ahead and register here, you need, in order to have access to any functionality that's specific to your organization, you need to use your domain name. In other words, if I was logging in, it would be my email address at ballistix.com, not a Gmail address. If I log in with my Gmail address, I won't get access to any of the functionality that is associated with the Ballistix domain. So let me go ahead and log in. And when I log in, we're looking at a blank page here. And what we need to do is add widgets to this page. So I'm going to build now the dashboard has, to give you some context, has the ability to add multiple pages. So actually let me do that right away. I'm going to add a second page here, and I'm going to call this page customer service. And before you can save a page, you have to populate the page with containers. So I could do that by dragging one container to populate the whole page here, or if I wanted, I could have a couple of smaller containers. Let me set up the customer service. I'm going to add a couple of containers here. And size them. You can go back and change the sizing of these later. Let me start with this. Generally, I will build a status board for customer service with 3 widgets on it. You'll see that in a second. So I'll go ahead and save that. And the other page that we have here we'll use for sales. and we'll just have the one widget on that page. So edit, and I'll change the name of this page to sales. So now we've set up a couple of pages. There they are, sales and customer service. Let's populate the customer service one first. So to navigate to a page, I'll click on the little bullseye here. If I want to edit a page, I'll click the edit button here. If I want to delete a page for some reason, I can't be on that page. It'll warn me if I am, but I would just click the little trash can icon there. Let me maximize this. Okay, so where are we? I want to go to the customer service page, and we'll start by setting up customer service. So on the customer service page, I'm going to have three widgets. I'm going to have one showing open cases in a table form right here. I'm going to have what we call an on-time case completion widget here, and I'm going to have a pie chart here. So to add the widgets, I click plus in the container that I want to add a widget to. I select the widget type. We want to add a table here. Now I choose a data source. In this case, I'm seeing a whole bunch of data sources because I have the master key, as it were. But let me just go to Ballistix case register. I don't want to show you anyone else's data, and I'll call this Ballistix open cases for the long title. Actually, and for the short title, I'll just call it open cases. Now, the reason there's a long title and a short title is remembering that these widgets are resizable, or at least the containers into which they sit are resizable. If you put a widget in a small container and there isn't room for the long title, it'll default to the short one. Now, we have the ability to set up traffic lights. I need to come back and do that at the moment because it hasn't detected the columns yet, which is fine in the widget. So go ahead and save. And what it's just done is it's added this table called open cases. I'll go back and complete that last step. I'll go to widget title, that's all fine, and widget content. There's a column here called percentage of target that I want to have traffic lights on it. So you can pick one column and you specify the breaks in decimals for these traffic lights. So when the value in this traffic light column is greater than 1 in a given row, it'll show the black, and between 0.67 and 1. So this is percentages, obviously. If a task is less than 33% done, it'll show green, between 33 and 67 yellow, and so on. And I can click save here. Now if I've gone ahead and adjusted column widths and I want to reset them to equal column widths, as you can see here in the background, I just click this when I save it and it'll reset them. I'll go ahead and hit save, and there we can see this. Now it looks kind of ugly because all these columns are crammed up. So what I might do is, if I hover over the header here of the widget, on all the widgets, I see over here on the left-hand side the date and time of the last update to this data set. The data set updates every 10 minutes. Now, if for some reason in the last update there was a problem, it will show a little orange triangle, and in fact it'll show that triangle even when you don't hover. And if you hover over when there's an orange triangle, it'll tell you what the problem is. So if that occurs, just let us know at Ballistix and we'll fix it for you. So to edit the contents of this widget table, there's a little table settings icon here that you can see when you hover, and if you click on this, it gives you a few different options for editing. One is you can add and remove columns. And to remove columns, we simply drag them and drop them in the column chooser. Now, let me get rid of a few here, just to space this out a little bit. Really what we want to see is case description. I'm going to leave status there for a minute, but we'll get rid of that in the fullness of time. I'm going to get rid of all the columns I don't actually need. I'll leave total hours, target hours. We only want to see open cases, so I'll get rid of closed. I don't need to see time open because I've got target and total hours there. And I'll get rid of all these. We don't need to see resolution because obviously we're only going to show open cases. Last note we could leave, but in this case I'll get rid of it. And now we can see it's nicely spaced out. We can move these around too, so we'll put project over here. If we've got, let me see, status we'll leave for the moment, and summary. The reason I've left status is I said that I wanted to show open cases, and this is showing all cases. So let me fix that for you in a minute. Now, I'll close the column closer, we'll come back to this, column chooser, we'll come back to this. But while we're here, there are some filters that we could apply. And there are 2 ways to apply filters, or 3 ways to apply filters. We could type a value in here. And this is handy if you want to filter on the fly. This is actually designed to be a status board, but sometimes people will use it on their desktop to manipulate data. So you can use this window here for that purpose. And you have options here. So starts with O, in this case, will work just as well as open. Well, starts with C, will probably show us closed ones. Okay, let's get rid of that one. Reset. There's another type of filter here, which is the filter. This is very similar to Excel. You have these 2 options. In Excel, in the auto filter, you have a text filter, and you also have a filter that gives you a list of all of the items. So I could say, show me everything except for cases that are resolved. And that will simply filter them out. So there's 2 different filtering options there. Let me just select all. But there's a third filtering option. As I said, if I go back to the widget settings over here, you'll see under the data menu there's an option here called filter. And we can go and choose here from this filter. And you see there's a couple of filters set up here. Let me select this filter. If I select this filter and save, you'll see that all of the tasks here that are either open or in progress, in other words not closed, are showing. So let me show you how that filter is set up. If I go back to the filter, what I can do is edit, choose the filter that I want to edit, opened, and here's the setup for the filter. So you'll see that this filter here, it's called open, so that's a name that I've manually assigned. And you'll see that this column here allows you to pick a column from the underlying table here. And I've chosen the closed column, and I've set the attribute here to is null. So open cases are obviously those cases where there is no close date. So there's no value in the closed field. And that's the filter here. Now, if I wanted to create a more complex filter, I could add another rule, and I could say, well, I want to limit this to cases that are owned by, tickets that are owned by just a particular person. For example, assign to equals, so I could enter a person's name, or I could say not equal to and a person's name. Or if I have people assigned to teams, I could go to a column called teams, and I could choose the team there. Now this is a fairly powerful filter. You have the ability to add rules, but you can also add rules to groups. So you can have a group of 3 records that have an AND relationship with one another, and that group of 3 records that have an internal AND relationship could have an external OR relationship with another group of 3 records which also have an internal AND relationship. So that enables you to build really the most complex filters that you could possibly dream up. And there's all sorts of operators here when you set up the filter. So really you can build the most complex filters that you can imagine. Now one of the uses for that is we might decide that we want to visualize the same data set in 2 different ways. We might say, for example, we want one table here that shows all of the open cases that belong to one team, and another table that shows all of the cases that belong to another team. So let's say, for example, we have a frontline customer service team, and then we have a team of estimators. We might choose to have 2 tables, one showing the tier 1 tasks and the other one showing the estimating team's tasks. So I'm going to apply the open filter here and hit save. There we are. And now that I've done that, we obviously don't need to see status anymore because we know that all of these are open. So I'll get rid of status, close the here. Now I can choose to click on one of these to choose in what order to filter them, to sort them. And it makes sense to have them sorting in descending order of percentage of target. So now this looks pretty nice. The only thing that we might want to do is tidy up these columns. So let's give more room for summary because this is the column that contains the most information. So I'll do that by reducing the size of some of these others here. Oops, it just refreshed in the background. It does that every 10 minutes. So now we've got tons of room for percentage of target. Now we've got tons of room for summary information to show. Okay, so that's the table setup. If we decided we wanted this to appear in a different size window, like this, it's impossible for us to resize that column, so what we would do is simply go here, widget content, and now we've resized our columns and we can size them to suit this particular window size here. Let me go back to full size and just resize these quickly. Probably makes sense to start with the outside ones. Okay, that's looking nice. Okay, so it's time to add another widget. So this time I'll add what we call the on-time case completion widget. So the on-time case completion widget connects to a special data source, a data source that has to be provided for you by Ballistix. You can't just connect it to a standard set of data. So let me find the Ballistix one. Ballistix case register in this case. It's actually the same. In this case, it's the same data set as the one we're seeing here. Now, I want to see a rolling 7-day average. It can be called on-time case completion. That's fine. Whoops. There we go. Okay, so there's our on-time case completion for these tickets here. So we're seeing that in our environment here, so this is our technology team, they're performing at 83% of on-time case 83% on-time case completion, which is about 7% away from where I'd like them to be. But it's pretty good. It's certainly not terrible. Now you'll see we've got one slot left here. Now same thing here applies. If I click here, you'll see that I can apply a filter. And the filter names are associated with the data set. So if I built a filter for this data set, this data source here, the filters are also available here. If I connected this on-time case completion to another data source, I wouldn't be able to see these filters. Now it doesn't make sense to filter this data because of the nature of what we're showing here. We really need to see at least 7 times 4. So at least 28 days worth of data for this to work, and we need to see opened and closed cases, of course, because this chart is reporting on both open and closed cases. So there's really not much point applying a filter unless I have a couple of teams. I might have team 1 and team 2, in which case I would apply a filter, and then I would go back and name these so that in the title it indicated whether it was team 1 or team 2. Okay, so now we have 2 widgets on this page. I mentioned that if you have 2 widgets, you can drag and drop, so let me demonstrate that. So we just swapped these widgets over. It looks kind of unnecessary having the on-time case completion widget that size, so let me swap them back. Something else that you can do is you can actually resize the containers on the pages, or add or subtract containers from the pages if we go back and edit the page menu. So let me go into customer service here. Now the padlocks here show you which containers have widgets in them. So if you delete, the reason it does that is if you delete the widget, if you delete the container, the widget and all the customizations will disappear with it. But you can, for example, simply resize it. So actually, let me not do that. Let me say we wanted a little more room for the table. We could go ahead and resize it. And that doesn't look too bad at all. So if, for example, we wanted to display more information, we wanted to have more columns or more room for the summary here. So now that at this size, this looks quite nice. We still have one widget to add, and you can see this is resized automatically. As I showed you before, if I resize the page, these widgets will resize. And you can see these widgets have a certain amount of intelligence built in. You're seeing 21 and 38 here at the bottom. If we send it to full screen, it'll refresh in a second. Let me force it to refresh. But we're still not seeing the full text here, opened and closed. But if we put it in a container that's a little bit wider, we will see that. So let me add the fourth widget here. Now the third widget, I should say, is a generic widget, meaning that you can point it to any data source. The table widget on the left is also a generic widget. You can point it to any standard data source. So the pie chart in this case, I'm going to point it to the same data source, Ballistix case register, but I could point it to whatever I wanted. And let's call it load by team member. Chart settings. Now here for the pie chart, let me just save it and then reopen it so that we can edit it. In the future, it will automatically suck in the column names. For the moment, you need to save it and reopen it, which is a minor inconvenience. So this is showing us all of the column names, and it's asking us to select the column that contains categories. So categories in a pie chart means the pieces of pie. In this case, we want the pie chart to show different load on different team members, which will be called assigned to in this data set. Now we have a choice here. We can choose a column that contains numeric values, in which case it will chart those values, or we can leave this blank, and if we leave it blank, it simply counts the number of rows in the table that contain each category name. If we choose a value, we can choose what operation to perform on that value. So let me choose a value here, let's say total hours, and we can sum them, average them, report the max or report the minimum value. In this case, we just want to count them, and we can switch on callouts, little boxes that contain the numbers, and if we do, those numbers can be in absolute terms or percentage terms. I'll show absolute terms, which will tell us the number of tickets, and if I hit save, okay, this tells us the number of the tickets that are attributed to different team members. Now we've got a lot with HEMA because we queue them up with HEMA. Oh, and also this is showing us all tickets. We really only want to see open tickets. So let me go here and add a filter open. This will probably make more sense. No, it doesn't. I think we've selected the wrong column. Let me go back here and widget content. Let me choose reporter. I think that will be the person who reports the issue. There we go. So now we're seeing the team members who are reporting the issue. So there we have the typical screen that we would have up in a customer service environment. All that would be left now that it's customized is send it to full screen mode, or actually maybe set it to dark and send it to full screen mode, and there we are. That will look great for customer service and give them all the information they need to have the positive feedback that will keep them productive. Okay, now we need to go and configure this for sales. Because you'll remember that we created a page back here for sales. So in the case of sales, I'm just going to add a single widget. It's what we call our sales activity tracker widget. It's our first sales widget. This one requires a special data source. I'll use Armstrong here. There's no special customer specific information here. And I'll simply click Save. There aren't a lot of options here. There's a filter that you can apply. We can go back and filter by salesperson if we want to. I've set up not Bob as a filter. I actually don't know the names of the salespeople there, so I would need to know that in order to demonstrate the filter for you. And this is a sales activity tracker. This is showing you, volume of activity down the bottom here and results on this little pie chart here. It updates every 10 minutes over the course of a day. So now we have 2 pages. We have one for sales and one for customer service. Now, it would be nice if they auto-rotated. So that's the last feature up here on the right-hand side. This little clock, if you click this, you have the ability to have all of the pages rotate. Eventually, we will allow you to build sequences of pages. So you can select pages and you can have them rotate out of sequence, or you could have the same page appear multiple times in the one sequence. That'll be coming in future. For now, you simply have the option to choose different cycle times. So if we choose 30 seconds here, every 30 seconds the page will rotate, which is really way too much. And you can see when it's going to rotate and that it's got auto-rotate switched on because there's a little moving set of dots, an ellipsis at the top here. So if I send this to full screen view, we can watch that little ellipsis crawl across to the right-hand side of the screen. And when it gets to the right-hand side of the screen, it will refresh. It will not refresh, sorry, it will load the next page. And it'll continue doing that until it's run out of pages, or until you tell it to stop. If you want to tell it to stop, you can simply go here and switch it off. So that's all I have for you. There's a basic introduction to Nsyteful, and I've shown you how to set it up for its most common use cases currently, customer service and sales. And in so doing, I've introduced you to a handful of important concepts. I've introduced you to, pages, the containers in the background there that make up the pages. I've introduced you to the widgets, of course. You understand already that those widgets are movable. I've introduced you to filters and the ability to set up complex filters and apply them on multiple widgets for the same data source. So you've got a pretty good grounding in how Nsyteful works. Oh, and last of all, you've learned how these 4 menu buttons work. You've got the page selector there to select pages. You've got auto rotate. You've got the themes to toggle between themes. We'll probably add more themes in future. And you've got the option there to send it to full screen. So that's your introduction to Nsyteful complete. Thank you for playing.